day, you're watching Business World Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm Delos Santos. Here are the biggest stories to kickstart this trading day. Incoming NEDA Chief Arsenio Balisacan says new taxes may have to be introduced under the Marcos Jr. administration. That's in order to fund more public services.
Economists warn that a weaker peso may bloat the country's debt stock.
The entry of Elon Musk's SpaceX into the Philippines has been delayed beyond June.
And what's in store for the local bourse now that it has completely shifted to floorless trading? We begin our broadcast with incoming NEDA Chief Arsenio Balisacan saying new taxes are needed to fund the priority projects of the incoming administration.
But Balisacan admits the timing of introducing new taxes should be carefully considered. He says new sources of tax should be imposed in the next 6 years in order to finance more public services. But he told Businessworld editors that timing is the main issue, especially the country is still recovering from the pandemic. Now, incoming Finance Chief Ben Jokno has earlier said that he wants to avoid new taxes for now, as he prefers to focus on improving tax administration through digital means. Recall that last month, the DOF unveiled a fiscal consolidation plan which seeks to raise a yearly average of $284 billion in revenues for the next decade to repay the $3.2 trillion additional debt incurred during the pandemic. Now, the plan involves new tax measures, including VAT on digital service providers and tax on cryptocurrency. Balisacan says some sectors are still undertaxed, including mining. He also says the government should consider imposing pollution tax and more sin taxes.
Now, with Ferdinand Marcos Jr. scheduled to officially assume the presidency, business groups bared their wish list for his first 100 days in office. PCCI President George Barcelon says Marcos Jr. should prioritize addressing issues related to food security, public transport, and education. Makati Business Club Executive Director Coco Alcuaz is also urging the economic team to undo the recent changes in the Build, Operate, Transfer Law (IRR) and reverse the FIRB's decision on remote work for BPOs. ECO President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. hopes that the Marcos administration works on creating more jobs, while the FPI Chairman Jesus Aranza reminds the incoming government to consult stakeholders first on what policies are needed to boost investments.
Now, the peso has slumped to its weakest value against the US dollar in over 16 years, and economists are warning of some far-reaching implications. For one, Pantheon Macroeconomic Chief Emerging Asia economist Miguel Chanco says there's no question that a weaker peso would make it more costly to service the country's foreign debts. The local unit closed at about 54.98 pesos against the US dollar, its weakest close since October 2005. Meanwhile, the national government debt currently stands at almost 12.8 trillion pesos as of end April, with 30% or about 3.8 trillion pesos owed to foreign creditors. How much lower can the peso go, and what can government do to address the volatility? To get insights, we have on the show Ronoilo Balbieran, economist over at the University of Asia and the Pacific. Prof. Balbieran, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Doc Danie.
Okay, again, the peso already at multi-year lows here. What's your outlook here on the local currency? How much more worse can it get?
Well, as the favorite phrase of the Economists, it depends. Well, it's a double-edged sword, no? So one, we are welcoming the increase in the exchange rate because it somehow softened the cushion for OFW families, because that would mean extra money for them as they convert their dollar remittance to pesos, no? And then that would also encourage some of our exporters, and that would make our tourism much more competitive as far as relative prices are concerned. But however, no, the deterioration of our trade deficit, and of course it figures to our current account deficit, that would actually trigger further deterioration in our deficit, and therefore it might actually push our exchange rate further to between the area of 55 to 57. So, but there's a natural balancing act there. So as we grow our economy more, then we will attract back our foreign investors and some foreign money, and that would actually increase the supply of flow of dollars into the economy, and that would actually provide a countervailing factor so as to prevent a too much depreciation of the peso.
Okay, Prof. Balbieran, your thoughts on the comments made by incoming BSP Governor Felipe Medalla on Friday. He did tell Bloomberg that he doesn't really need to see, he doesn't see the need to prop up the slumping peso, and that they are letting the market determine the peso's value against the dollar here. Your thoughts on that? Up to what extent should at least the BSP just let this be, and when should they intervene? Or step in?
I totally agree. No, there are two things. Number one, our problem is so much different with the problem of America and other developed countries. Our problem is basically we're affected by the oil situation, but the rest of our economy is doing well. We have performed 8.3% in the first quarter, and because of the election spending, we are bound to have a second quarter stronger growth again, and the bare months, third and the fourth quarter will bring us additional growth for our economy. So basically, the motivation for increasing our policy rate is rather different. No? So our motivation, or the motivation of the BSP, is more of a demand-driven motivation. It's because we are growing, as different from the problem of America, because they are now experiencing too much demand that their economy can no longer support that too much demand. For us, we are just beginning to recover, and we have so much unutilized capacity, and therefore this is not a case of a too much overheating of our economy that needs so much increase in policy rate. No, so I think it's just a perception game. Just a precautionary increase in the policy rate on the side of our BSP, because what we need here is to support our recovery story more than controlling our inflation, because I think the oil prices will sort it out for itself. No, so as we've seen, I think we are slowing down the increase in the price of oil, because we are already forecasting as a recession for the global economy, for the U.S. economy, and therefore the oil prices will plateau and probably drop because of that slower demand. And we anticipate, we are praying that the price of oil will go down faster than what we forecast, and then that will serve additional supply of growth for our economy.
Sir, the peso weakness, or some might even say that it's really just because of dollar strength, because of the Fed hiking rates faster than expected, maybe another 75 basis point hike there. But some are saying that will normalize, and they've also said that. Is, to your view, what is causing dollar strength apart from just the Fed rate hikes? You already mentioned the demand side driven issue there, but to the extent that these Fed rate hikes start to normalize, maybe after another meeting, will that taper off and make emerging market currencies stronger?
Well, if we take it simply from the point of view of demand and supply of dollars, no, so because dollar is just like a bread that you buy with pesos, no, so who's buying and who's selling the dollars? No, as far as who's buying the dollars, most likely our business community who are experiencing a recovery from their businesses. So most of them, a lot of them, are actually importing the raw materials, and so you are buying more dollars to import your raw materials, and that is putting a lot of demand pressure for the peso depreciation. Then second is the interest rate differential from the interest rate or the policy rate of the US and in the Philippines. So you have that 50 basis points differential in the increase, and so therefore that's attractive for dollar investors. And so both foreigners here who are going back to America and some domestic investors here who would like to take advantage of that interest rate differential, so would be buying more dollars and putting it to the United States. Now, moving forward, no, that's a short-term strategy for investors. But moving forward, as they make money out of that interest rate differential, the next question is which one will provide them a long-term profit strategy. So would that be supplied by that interest rate differential, or would that be supplied by the differential in the economic growth between the Philippines and the United States? So I must say, and we are Filipinos here, so I am optimistically forecasting that we will have much more prospects for our businesses and foreign and domestic investors as far as the differential in economic growth is concerned. And so towards the next few quarters, this money will go back to the Philippines and provide that stabilization that you are talking about, Doc Danie.
Sir, what level of inflation are you generally comfortable with until the end of the year before the BSP needs to hike as aggressively as the Fed?
Well, we've experienced this already, no? So in 2005, 2006, 2007, when our inflation have accelerated because of the oil prices. But I think they are in a wait and see mode because the global recession may come in much earlier, and so there might be no need for that additional policy rate hike, no? So. But it's probably when you're starting to hit already at 7-8% on a monthly basis, no? So that's when they become very worried about our inflation. But as far as our inflation situation or inflation based crisis is concerned, we're far from hitting a crisis mode as far as oil-driven inflation. Why? Because our inflation crisis have been driven by the lack of cash, the lack of dollar reserves, and the lack of domestic surpluses in the banking sector. But that is not present in this current situation that we have right now. And so therefore, there's a huge amount of cushion from the financial sector and from the BSP and even from the government. So when we experienced that in 2006-07, our government was in a fiscal crisis. We're just still trying to fix our fiscal crisis, but we're far away from the fiscal crisis. And so we are far from fiscal crisis, and our financial sector, both dollar savings and peso savings, are so much in surplus. So therefore, this particular inflation problem is not gonna produce a lot of worry as against the worries of developed countries abroad. No?
Okay, Prof, of course, much of the government's response would not only hinge on monetary interventions here, but also you have non-monetary means here, for example, targeted subsidies. But at the same time, is it high time as well for the government to look at the probability of letting go of supply barriers, like lessening tariff, just to ramp up supply?
Yes, they can consider that, and then they have actually introduced that, no, before in 2018, no, when we had a problem with the rice-driven inflation, no? So then we opened up ourselves with imported rice, so they can start opening up that particular front. But at the same time, to enable government to have more abilities, no? So I think it's high time for, and I welcome the development of the president himself taking on the role, at least temporarily, to be the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, because a lot of poverty and inflation problems are hinged in that particular sector. If we increase the supply and the productivity of the agriculture sector, we solve both purchasing power of more than 65% of the poor in the Philippines. At the same time, we solve a couple of percentage points reduction in terms of food-related logistics that fuel our food-related inflation. So I think I would rather go on the supply side in terms of boosting, modernizing, digitalizing our productivity, especially at the agriculture and agribusiness space.
All right, so not all is lost there. Thank you so much for those pragmatic suggestions. That was, of course, Professor Ronoilo Balbieran, economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. Salamat, Prof.
My pleasure.
Now, pausing for a quick break, but coming right up after that. Brokers go fully digital starting today as the local bourse officially shuts its physical trading floor.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. Now it is the first trading day of the week yet again, and the first day without the PSE's iconic trading floor. This as the stock exchange permanently closed that physical facility floor last Friday. I personally spoke with PSE President Ramon Monzon about what this means for the bourse moving forward. Let's watch this.
It's the end of an era. June 24, 2022 was an historic day for the Philippine Stock Exchange as it was the last physical trading day of this institution. The last closing bell rang at 3 p.m. on Friday, telling the traders on the floor that it was time to shut their books and head on home. Welcome to the Pamilihang Sapi ng Pilipinas, better known as the Philippine Stock Exchange. Now, as you can see here, this building is the epitome of modern architecture right at the heart of the Bonifacio Global City. However, this stands on the shoulders of more than 100 years of trading by our country's most illustrious entrepreneurs and market makers. It was in December 23, 1992, when the Philippine Stock Exchange was formed from the merger of the Manila Stock Exchange, located in Binondo, and the Makati Stock Exchange, based in the Makati Central District. The exchange, though, has been in operation since 1927. This unified trading floor located in the PSE Tower replaced the institution's former headquarters, one at the Ayala Tower 1 and the other at the Tectay Towers over in Pasig.
All brokers had to be on the trading floor. And then there would be page boys Okay?
Okay.
So that a customer who wants to place an order would go to the exchange, tell the page boy that, I want to place an order with a certain broker or his broker. The page boy would ring the, bell, so the broker would now come out, okay, and get the order, and then shout out the order. So it's a very, very manual system.
As of March this year, the Philippine Stock Exchange has 281 listed companies. While the physical trading floor has been historic and iconic for investors, traders, and brokers all over the country, why exactly did it have to come to an end? Well, the PSE has decided to shift to virtual trading. PSE President and CEO Ramon Monzon says that with the pandemic, trading from home has proven to be more efficient.
As technology evolved, connectivity evolved, so it is now possible for brokers to connect to our trading platform.
Monzon thinks it's about time to shift to floorless trading, noting that there are no other exchanges in the ASEAN region that still has a physical trading floor. He also told Businessworld Live earlier that only 29, or nearly a third, of their 85 brokers had renewed leases in the trading floor following the lockdowns.
We're the only ASEAN exchange. Okay, that has a trading floor. Everybody's on a floorless trading floor. Of course, everybody will say, but New York Stock Exchange still operates a trading floor. But 82% of their trades are done electronically. So it's more for show than for actual trading.
The closing ceremony lasted around 15 minutes and was led by Monzon himself together with PSE Director Maria Vivian Yuchenko. Trading participants and PSE officer witnessed the event, with some getting a little bit emotional over its permanent closure. But Monzon said he is confident that the culture of camaraderie between brokers will outlive the physical trading floor.
They develop, decades long of friendship and camaraderie. Remember, at the tower, we have the broker offices. So they can continue to, congregate at the lounge or even at the canteen, during lunchtime, or have drinks after office. So that should not end the friendship.
Despite the emotions, this they say to the trading floor: no goodbyes, just see you online. I'm Danie, Laurel, and we are One News.
Here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. The Energy Department says they will continue to pursue talks with 2 existing service contract holders so they can proceed with oil and gas explorations in the West Philippine Sea. This comes after the Security, Justice and Peace Cabinet cluster suspended all oil and gas activities in the disputed waters last March, as well as the DFA announcing the termination of the joint negotiations with China. Outgoing Energy Chief Al Cusi said SC holders can start resuming their work program after the April suspension, provided they coordinate their activities with the department. Directly affected by the suspension order were exploration work in Recto Bank and Northwest Palawan. Both service contracts are mainly operated by PXP Energy.
And the launch of the first gateway connecting the Philippines with the SpaceX satellite network has been delayed beyond June. The Trade Department said the Elon Musk-owned company has yet to firm up the site for the gateway, thus causing an adjustment in the original timeline. Recall that the original target for the Philippine launch of SpaceX was sometime within the term of President Duterte. Trade Secretary Mon Lopez could not give an updated timeline for the launch, saying the company has made no disclosures yet on the matter.
And those are the biggest stories from the economic and corporate front today, June 27, 2022. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. We are One News. And don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the stock market when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us.
final last trading week of June, will window dressing ensue?
That is exactly what we are hoping for, at least. Just window dressing plus bargain hunting may just come to save the bourse on this last trading week. We've had 3 straight weeks of decline this entire month of June. Of course, even abroad, U.S. futures are declining. We had a surge on Wall Street on Friday, but then now it's seeming to be bleak. But as we look at our own opening, we seem to be firming up above 6,200, perhaps on the back of what you mentioned, might be some window dressing here. We are up by 0.5%, and in the last 3 days have actually recovered by 1 3/10%. Now let's take a quick peek at our biggest movers here for the morning. We are about 30 minutes into this Monday's trade. Mega World and Ayala Land, so 2 big guns in the property space, up by 4.5% and 4 3/10% respectively. However, on the downside, you do have Robinson's Land down by 1 7/10%, followed by Metrobank and Emperador. Now, I did want to take a quick peek at one sector in particular, and that is the financials. Now, as you can see, year to date, it's down by 6 6/10%. But this morning is also one of the ones sitting out this rally. Now, here, we actually got this over Fridays at the close of the day, but I did want to mention it today. ING Philippines will be leaving at least the retail banking part before the end of the year, but they will continue to be investing in the wholesale banking and global shared services operation. They said that the scalability is being addressed, and they did not expand, or they decided not to expand their activities in other countries due to an uncertain global situation. Now, recall that they launched their retail business just in 2018, just right ahead of the pandemic, and they have more than 380,000 retail customers, but they did mention those customers can still continue accessing those funds. So that, of course, puts into question the future of digital banking, as one of the giants, ING, will be exiting the country. And finally, just a quick peek at the peso. We've been looking at that throughout the entire day. You can see that weakening by 4 9/10, or close to 5% in just 1 month, the entire month of June. But we are strengthening a touch. We are back to 54.923 after having some scares that we might be breaking above 55 or 56 levels, Jess.
All right, and that's it for today. I'm Jess Delos Santos. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere.
I'm Danie, Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.